I think Rolex accidentally created Tudor's best advertisement. Because the more expensive Rolexes become, the better this watch looks. Now that's a dangerous statement, especially on the internet. Because every time someone buys a Tudor Black Bay 58, there's always someone in the comments saying, "Why didn't you just save up for a Rolex?" Well, after wearing this watch, I think that's actually the wrong question. The better question is, why are so many Rolex owners quietly buying this watch too? And that's exactly what we're going to find out today. If you've been watching this channel for a while, you already know I don't really make watch reviews. I tell watch stories. Sometimes it's about why I bought a watch. Sometimes it's about why I sold one. Sometimes it's about the memories attached to it or the little details that made me fall in love with it. Living here in Japan has allowed me to experience everything from affordable Japanese hidden gems to Swiss luxury icons. And every now and then a watch comes along that deserves its own story. The Tudor Black Bay 58 is one of those watches. But I'll be honest with you, I didn't fall in love with this watch because of the movement. I didn't even fall in love with it because of the famous 39mm case size. I fell in love because of a leather strap. One of the reasons I eventually bought this watch was because of a strap I saw on the WatchGecko website, the Hailey Douglas strap in olive brown. I know it sounds strange that a strap could convince me to buy a watch, but just look at that combination. The warm olive brown leather, the gilt accents on the dial, the creamy lume, and the vintage-inspired design all come together so naturally that it almost feels like the watch was designed around that strap. Everything is cohesive. Nothing feels forced. It was one of those rare combinations where you immediately stop scrolling and think, "Yep, that's exactly how this watch should look." Unfortunately, by the time I finally bought the Black Bay 58, the Hailey Douglas strap had already been discontinued. I was genuinely disappointed because that exact pairing was what made me fall in love with the watch in the first place. Luckily, after a bit of searching, I found a very similar olive brown leather strap that captures almost the same look and feel. Every time I put it on, it reminds me why I wanted this watch so badly. Sometimes it's not the movement or the specifications that sell you on a watch. Sometimes it's simply seeing the perfect pairing that makes you think, that's the one. And honestly, I think that's one of the biggest compliments you can give any watch. Now, this isn't the newest Tudor. It doesn't have the latest buzz. It isn't a limited edition. And it certainly doesn't have some crazy complication that people can't stop talking about. Yet somehow, years after its release, collectors still keep recommending it. That's unusual in today's watch world, where every new release is supposedly the next big thing for about 3 weeks before everyone moves on to the next shiny object. So what makes this one different? Before we get into the details, just take a good look at it. There's something about the Black Bay 58 that photographs never quite capture. The gilt accents, the warm lume, the proportions. It somehow manages to look vintage without pretending to be vintage. It's clean without being sterile, elegant without trying too hard. It's like that one friend who always looks effortlessly well-dressed but insists they just threw something on, while the rest of us have spent 20 minutes deciding which strap matches our socks. Now here's where things get interesting. Because I don't actually think the biggest reason people buy this watch is the design. I think it's the size. And this might be one of the biggest lessons the watch industry has learned over the last decade. For years, dive watches kept getting larger. 43 millimeters, 44, 45. Apparently, manufacturers thought our wrists were evolving. Then Tudor released the Black Bay 58 at 39 millimeters, just under 12 millimeters thick, with a lug-to-lug of around 47 millimeters. Suddenly, everyone remembered, oh right, watches are actually supposed to fit. On my wrist, and if you've been watching this channel for a while, you know my wrist isn't exactly the size of Captain America's. It just disappears. It's one of those watches you forget you're wearing until you catch a glimpse of it while reaching for your coffee or checking the time. Then you smile. That's the difference. Some watches constantly remind you they're expensive. This one quietly reminds you why you bought it. The dial deserves its own conversation because, technically speaking, it's incredibly simple. Black dial, round hour markers, snowflake hands, no fancy textures, no enamel, no meteorite, no hand-painted dragons, nothing that Instagram would describe as insane. Yet somehow, you keep looking at it. The gilt printing gives it warmth. The creamy loom softens the entire dial. And those snowflake hands, which some people absolutely hated when Tudor brought them back, have become one of the most recognizable handsets in modern watchmaking. Love them or hate them, you instantly know you're looking at a Tudor. That's good design. Here's something that nobody tells you before buying a Black Bay 58. This watch might quietly ruin other watches for you. Seriously. Once you get used to wearing something this balanced, everything else starts feeling just a little too big, a little too thick, a little too flashy, or a little too heavy. It's like switching from driving an oversized SUV into a perfectly balanced sports sedan. The SUV wasn't bad, it just suddenly feels unnecessary. The BB58 has balance, and balance is surprisingly difficult to achieve. The bezel, the dial, the crystal, the case finishing, everything feels like it belongs together. Even the crown is comfortable and doesn't dig into your wrist like certain other dive watches we won't mention today. You know who you are. Inside the watch is Tudor's in-house MT5402 movement. It's COSC certified, has a 70-hour power reserve, a silicone hairspring, and a reputation for being extremely reliable. But honestly, the specification that matters most isn't printed anywhere on the box. It's that people actually wear these. This isn't a safe queen that spends 11 months in a watch roll waiting for a special occasion. Owners swim with it, travel with it, wear it to work, knock it against door frames, pick up groceries wearing it, live life wearing it, and somehow every scratch just adds to its personality. It's like a leather jacket, or me after trying to assemble IKEA furniture without reading the instructions. The bracelet also deserves some praise. It's solid, beautifully finished, and tapers nicely toward the clasp, making it extremely comfortable. Now yes, the earlier versions didn't have Tudor's excellent T-fit clasp, and plenty of people complained about that. But honestly, if you ask me, the Black Bay 58 truly comes alive on leather. Every time I put mine back on this olive brown strap, I'm reminded why I bought the watch in the first place. The warmth of the leather complements the gilt dial perfectly, making the entire watch feel even more vintage and refined. It's one of those rare watches that genuinely becomes a different watch depending on the strap you pair it with. Which brings me to another reason I love this watch. This Black Bay 58 is an absolute strap monster. Leather? Beautiful. Rubber? Fantastic. NATO? It almost feels like that's what it was born to wear. Canvas? Vintage perfection. Brown suede? Chef's kiss. I've tried quite a few combinations and honestly I haven't found one that looks bad. Every strap changes the personality of the watch without taking away its identity. That's dangerous because you start telling yourself you're only buying one extra strap. Before long, you've somehow accumulated 32 straps, And now you're convincing yourself that strap collecting is an entirely separate hobby. Trust me, I know exactly how that story ends. But here's why I think the Black Bay 58 has remained so relevant, while so many other hyped watches have quietly disappeared. It doesn't rely on hype, it relies on timeless design. Think back to all the watches that exploded across YouTube 5 years ago. How many of them do people still recommend today? Exactly. The BB58 never had to shout. It simply kept showing up on people's wrists. First-time buyers, experienced collectors, even people who own watches costing 10 times as much. That's because good proportions never go out of style. Comfortable watches never become outdated. And perhaps that's the biggest compliment you can give any watch. You eventually stop thinking about the specifications and simply enjoy wearing it. Now let's address the elephant in the room. Should you buy this, or should you save for a Rolex Submariner? Honestly, that depends entirely on why you're buying a watch. If you're chasing prestige, you probably already know your answer. But if you're chasing enjoyment, things become much more interesting. The Black Bay 58 delivers almost everything people genuinely love about owning a luxury dive watch. Excellent finishing, fantastic proportions, a reliable in-house movement, daily comfort, versatility, character, and perhaps most importantly, you don't spend every waking moment worrying about scratching a watch that now costs as much as a small used car. Sometimes peace of mind is worth more than prestige. One thing I also really appreciate is that Tudor has finally become comfortable being Tudor. The brand no longer feels like it's trying to imitate Rolex. It has embraced its own identity through the snowflake hands, the vintage-inspired designs, and its military heritage. Everything now feels intentional instead of borrowed. And I think that's one of the biggest reasons Tudor has become one of the strongest brands in modern watch collecting. So after all these years, is the Tudor Black Bay 58 still worth buying? I think the answer is surprisingly simple. Not because it's perfect, no watches. Not because it's the cheapest. Not because it's the rarest. It's worth buying because it gets the fundamentals almost perfectly right every single day you wear it. And honestly, that's much harder than releasing another limited edition with a different colored bezel. If I were starting my luxury watch collection all over again, would the Black Bay 58 make my shortlist? Absolutely, without hesitation. Because trends come and go, hype comes and goes, but genuinely great watches quietly stay relevant year after year. And the Black Bay 58 has been proving exactly that ever since it was introduced. If you've owned a Black Bay 58, I'd genuinely love to hear your experience. Did it live up to the hype? Did it become your daily watch? Or did you eventually move on to something else? And if you're currently deciding between this and another dive watch, let everyone know what's on your shortlist. The comments on this channel are full of collectors with real-world experience, and someone might help you make the right decision. If you enjoyed spending a few minutes talking watches with me, consider subscribing for more watch stories from Japan, where we'll keep looking beyond the hype to find watches that are genuinely worth owning. Until next time, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.